Welcome, everybody, to our regular board meeting Thursday, January 26, 2023. I'm going to start with the territorial acknowledgement. I do have a bit of a cough, but I don't have COVID. Been in dry places. We would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in the Robinson Huron Treaty Territory, and the land on which we are gathered is traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, specifically the Garden River and Batchewana First Nations, as well as the Métis people. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending. We'll do the roll call. Myself, Lisa Vezo-Allen, we have John Bruno, we have Ian McKenzie, and welcome Eva Daybuch, welcome Marchie Bruni. And for staff, we have Chief Stevenson, Deputy Chief McLaughlin, Sarah Miles, we have Lisa Hodgkin in the back, Lincoln Ludit, and we have Mr. Freeman, Mr. Dugay. And then online, we have Tom Gervais. Do you have anyone else online, Lincoln?
Brian Kelly just logged in.
Oh, and we have Brian Kelly from the Sioux Star. Hi, Brian. Happy New Year. And also with us from Sioux today, we have James Hopkins. And anybody else? Sarah? And we have Sarah Miles, our wonderful board secretary. Okay. So I'm going to call the meeting to order at 1:02. And before we did the swearing in, we were going to do, remember, a little just a little round table to introduce ourselves. So because we have some newcomers, which is great. My name's Lisa Vezo-Allen. I was elected to council in the fall of 2018, and this is my third two-year term at the Services Board. Outside of my council and board commitments, I'm also chair and founder of a social enterprise on Gore Street called Grocer for Good. I'm also sitting member of the Social Equity Committee locally here. And I'm vice chair of Autism Ontario, worked in the nonprofit sector pretty much most of my life. And I'm the proud mom of now I can say 3 adult sons. 18.
Wow.
3 adult sons. Crazy. Yeah, I know. I'm still here sitting down. John?
Oh, hi. John Bruno, and I've been here, I'm not quite sure, I think about 10 years. I think so.
Tom could probably say it.
Sarah, yeah,
Tom.
Sarah can vouch for me. I'm the vice chair. I'm also come from a background of education. I was a teacher, principal, and a superintendent. And I have one daughter, married as well, for many years, 40 some years. Yeah, I better remember.
You better remember that.
March, I better remember the exact date. I think that's about it. I'll move on to Marchie.
Yeah, my name's Marchie Bruni. I'm a counselor for Ward 4. I've been a counselor for 12 years, and I did a 2-year stint here in the past. It was 8 years ago. And married, 2 kids, 1 grandchild. Been retired for 3 years, worked for Ontario Lottery Corporation. Life is good. No winning ticket yet.
Yeah. Marchie also gets the best parking spot now because he is the most, not senior in age, but senior longstanding member of council.
Oh, okay.
So
you're right up at the front now.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
That's not the good That's lucky.
So my name's Eva Daybuch. I'm from Mississauga First Nation, and my mom's from Pine Ridge, South Dakota. So I'm Ojibwe and Sioux. I'm a social worker. I have my MSW from the University of Toronto. I work at Batchewana First Nation. I'm their education wellness lead, so I supervise a team there. I am like one of the founders of the Indigenous Women's Anti-Violence Task Force. So I co-chair that, and I work with the grandmothers who do work on anti-human trafficking. So I support that as well.
Wonderful. Welcome.
And I own Trailblazing Beats.
Yeah.
Just, I gotta throw that in.
Yeah, you gotta,
I'm
yeah.
very proud of my
Yeah,
store. So,
Yeah. It's a great story. Yeah.
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 My name's Ian McKenzie. my career was spent primarily in the media, with over 40 years in marketing and advertising. Retiring back in 2010, spent 52 years coaching minor soccer, both girls and guys, competitive, and much as I love to travel, I've been on a police services board on and off for 13 years. I served as chair and vice chair and just as a regular member. And that's me. I arrived from Scotland in 1965 after coming out of the Royal Navy and boy service. I have 3 wonderful children. I have 4 lovely grandchildren. And I'm happily married for 53 years this year. And any woman that would put up with me 53 years should have received the Medal of Merit many years ago.
That's wonderful, Ian.
Well said.
Yeah, exactly. Chief?
Chief of Police Hugh Stevenson, been doing this for 38 years now. Been the chief of 5 years in June, and 32 and a half years with the OPP. Retired superintendent, doctorate degree in education in multiculturalism and psychology, and also taught for 25 years in a variety of universities here and around the world. That's me. Thank you.
And you're a pilot.
Oh, yeah. That's nice.
Yep.
A lot of other things going on.
Yep.
It's all good. Thanks.
Deputy?
Thank you. Bob McLaughlin, Deputy Chief, appointed in January 2019. Chief is always a hard act to follow.
Not really.
39 years in Peel Regional Police. A lot of intelligence work, a lot of undercover work, a lot of criminal investigations, but also a lot of patrol experience down there. And quite proud of that career, and happy to have been appointed the Deputy Chief here. And not a pilot, but I'm a pretty good co-pilot.
He's a great co-pilot.
And I have a hobby of motorcycles, and that's it. Thank you.
And a great guitar player.
Oh yeah, my music, a frustrated musician, and my son's a much better musician than I am, which is always a cause for concern. But I, taught him what he knew, at least at first. So.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's my story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bill?
Hi, everyone. Bill Freeman, I'm Inspector of Support Services. Been here for about 25 years. Moved around the department somewhat over the last 25 years, and just glad to meet all of you. Some of you I know, some of you I don't.
Brent?
I'm Inspector Brett Duguay. I'm a inspector in charge of criminal investigations. 28 years here with the City Police Service, majority of which spent in special services and criminal investigation inside of the house. Just to meet you all, and look forward to working with you.
Thanks. Lisa?
Lisa Hodgson, I am Chief Stevenson and Deputy Chief McLaughlin, the Executive Assistant. I don't know, I've been here 37 years and counting.
Lincoln?
I'm Lincoln Loudit, Manager of Corporate Communications. I've been here about 4 years. Previous to that, I spent more than a decade in local and provincial media. And nice to see everybody again.
Mm-hmm. And certainly last but not least, Sarah, who keeps us all organized.
Try to.
Yeah.
Sarah Miles. I've been with the service for just over 9 years. When I'm not doing this, I work in investigation services. And yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so we can move on to the next item. Thanks, everyone. The swearing in. Very exciting.
Eva, we'll start with you.
With my work phone, I don't know how to shut it off or turn down the volume.
Oh, yeah.
So you're just gonna read what's on your paper here, and then I will stamp. And you'll sign and I'll sign.
Okay, I, Eva D. solemnly affirm that I will uphold the Constitution of Canada and that I will, to the best of my ability, discharge my duties as a member of the Sault Ste. Marie Police Services Board faithfully, impartially, and according to the Police Services Act and any other act and any regulation, rule, or bylaw.
So you can sign.
Okay,
You're gonna sign here and I'll stamp this. Okay.
and the next one. I, Eva Debus, solemnly affirm that I will not disclose any information obtained by me in the course of my duties as a member of the Sault Ste. Marie Police Services Board, except as I may be authorized or required by law.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I, Mark Shibroni, solemnly affirm that I will uphold the Constitution of Canada and that I will, to the best of my ability, discharge my duties as a member of the Sault Ste. Marie Police Service Board faithfully, impartially, and according to the Police Services Act and any act, any regulation, rule, or bylaw. I, Mark G. Bruni, solemnly affirm that I will not disclose any information obtained by me in the course of my duties as a member of the Sault Ste. Marie Police Service Board, except as I may be authorized or required by law.
And Marcy and Eva, Lincoln just wants to take a
I'm just staying right here. Just get a quick photo.
quick photo.
Make sure I get the Toronto Maple Leafs thing over there.
Really?
Can't help myself.
No, you have to put it in there.
Thank you. Well, welcome, Marcy and Eva. We appreciate your contributions. Conflict of interest declarations. Do we have any conflicts of interest to declare? Seeing none, we will move to item 6, our election of officers. So our first is the position of chair. I would wish to stand for another year of chair. There are no other people coming forward.
I would move that that John Brew is appointed chair of the Sault Ste. Marie Police Services Board.
John, do you accept the nomination?
I do accept your nomination. Thank you for the nominator.
And I also wish to stand as well. Would anyone second my nomination? Self-nomination?
I will second it.
Thank you. So Sarah, you'll need to go to a vote.
Yes, so I have some,
Stickies.
Yeah.
we'll do some paper. Everybody have them?
Thanks, Sarah.
You need me to read them out as we
Yeah,
go?
yeah.
So John Bruno. And for Lisa Allen. Lisa. John. And John.
Congratulations. But you want to switch to your front, like with the screen?
No,
You good here?
Yeah,
Okay,
we're good.
okay.
Thank you.
So we just need a mover and a seconder. So moved by. Ian, do you want to move?
I'm sorry?
Do you want to move? Do we need a mover and a seconder for John?
Yes, I definitely move it.
Okay,
I'll second it.
okay. And now it's yours.
Okay, just as a point of order, Chief, do you want to conduct the vice chair?
Okay.
Yep.
Accepting nominations for vice chair, accepting nominations as vice chair. I wanted to say it twice. It made me sound good.
Excited.
I see one nomination. Go ahead, sir.
I nominate Ian McKenzie.
Ian
for vice
McKenzie is
chair.
nominated as chair. Do we have a second to that nomination? Thank you. Second call for nominations for vice chair. Good. Seeing none. I hereby, with the powers invested in me, nominate Ian McKenzie as vice chair. I think you just need to second that. Something
I
like
would
that.
thank my nominator and look forward to serving as best I can. Thank you.
Okay,
Don't you need to have
You need a seconder.
a seconder for,
Marcy seconded.
yes, he did, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay, number 7 on the agenda. Thank you to everyone for the support, and certainly I would do my best as Ian mentioned as well in my role as the chair. Certainly in questions and transparency of information, we try to work as a team, and certainly that's the order of business today, and as we go through each meeting each month, and then the other meetings that are called. Another order of business will be the committees. In the past, we've done committees. I usually give somebody an opportunity. We can do them today. It's at the wish of the group on whether to have the committees done now, or you can email me or tell me before the end of the meeting or something, and just to give you a little bit of a chance to think about it. Some of the committee meetings are, just to give you a listing here, and they're at the bottom of the election of officers. We have an administrator. Certainly we can do that right now, and moved and second. I need a mover and a seconder.
I'll move Sarah's.
Sarah Miles is the administrator for the board. Mover, Lisa, seconder, Marchie. All in favor? Approved. Thank you. And Sarah, as was mentioned before, she has been with us for a long time and doing a great job for us. There's the Finance Committee Negotiating Committee. Do we want to proceed? Do I see, or do you want some time to think about it? Marchie, do you have any?
My only preference right now, to get my feet wet, is the police facility planning committee.
Okay, yeah, and that's the other, I'm sorry, that was in the other pretty, I'm sorry, yeah. Okay, like, you're okay with doing it now then, right? Okay, so, yeah,
I would be interested in that one as well, if there can be more than one. I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I would be interested in the facilities committee as well.
Ian?
I'd love to be on the facilities committee, but I think we're well guarded with the two, the new ones, and if there was any input, I would say, yeah. I don't mind going on finance and budget, can you?
Finance and budget, okay. Okay, well, we need a mover and a seconder for the police facility. We have Marchie and Eva. Mover.
I'll
Ian,
move that Eva and Marchie sit on the facility committee.
Yep, no second.
And Lisa, seconded. All in favor? Approved. And finance, Lisa,
I'll go back on finance. And as well negotiating and grievance committee.
Okay, mover for the finance and budget for Ian and Lisa. Marchie, and seconder for that, Eva. And all in favor? Approved. And I will put my as on the negotiating team. So John Bruno should do something. Thanks. I will also, I'm gonna put my name on all of them, okay? As the chair, just so that I have a working knowledge of what is going on. A mover for all three for John Bruno,
Oh, I move.
Lisa, and a seconder, Ian. All in favor? Approved. Yeah. Good. That was easy. That was good. Thank you. We have all that set. Now, if we can go back to the agenda. Sarah, does Eva have a paper copy of this?
I didn't prepare a hard copy for you.
Is there any way that you can, would you like one, Eva, or you have?
That would be nice.
Why don't
I
you
don't-
You wanna switch with me?
So I could see.
Yeah, let's do that.
Or, yeah, because.
Or I was gonna go over to you to share mine or whatever.
Right, okay, that works as well. Okay. Very good, thank you, Lisa.
Oh, no problem.
Very good.
Sure.
So questions and information arising out of the minutes and not otherwise on the agenda. Our last minutes, and please take a couple minutes because it's been a long time. Thursday, November 24th, 2022 was our last virtual meeting. As you know, the Christmas break was after that. And we're here after as our regular meeting. So please take a moment if there's anything there that you would like to comment on.
I reviewed them. They seemed, I didn't notice any corrections.
Okay, questions or information? Seeing none. Let's carry on. The adoption of minutes on November 24th. Moved.
I can move.
Lisa moved and seconded by
Ian.
Ian. Sorry, can't see you, Ian. Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting as presented be hereby approved. All in favor? Approved. Motion to accept the agenda, January 26th, 2023. A mover, please. Marchie. And a seconder. Ian.
That one is not mine. I
No,
know.
it's not yours.
Oh, it's not silent. There. Motion to accept the agenda moved by, I'm sorry, I'm just going over that again. Marchie and seconded by Ian.
Yeah.
Resolved that the agenda of the regular meeting is presented be hereby approved. All in favor? Approved. Presentation. This should be a very interesting one on drones footage. It's going to be presented by Inspector Duguay.
Thanks for the big build-up, sir. I would normally stand up, but maybe if somebody's back, no matter where I stand, so I think we'll display the PowerPoint. I'll narrate for you. The chief asked me to speak to our, we refer to it as the drone program. It's actually a remotely piloted aircraft system. The proper term for it, but we call it drone for this presentation. So we became involved with use of the drones a number of years back. We currently have 3 in our fleet. The one you see here is the actual workhorse of the unit. It's a DJI M300. It's purpose built for police law enforcement. There's a number of attachments. Ours currently has a FLIR spotlight, a drop system, and a zoom camera system. The cost to this unit was $55,000 when we got it 2 years ago. It was actually purchased through a grant through CISO as part of a project we were running. There was no cost to the service. However, the two other units we have are $2,000 to $3,000 a piece, and they're mainly used as training drones, so we're not using up airtime with the big unit. Training, obviously, there's a lot that goes into this. There is essentially a pilot program and a certification through Transport Canada. Currently have 2 fully certified operators with 4 more that are waiting to be qualified. That should be done by the end of 2023. So we'll have 6 fully licensed pilots for the drones by the end of this year. That training comes through work with the Administrative National Resources. From an operational support system, how we use the drone in the day-to-day service, number of applications. 2021, we were able to deploy the drone 7 times, and obviously in 2022, we've got 24. Some of that comes from the fact that officers are now aware of the drone. We have access to the drone, what their capabilities are. We're making incident commanders are obviously utilizing that a lot more. And now that we have equipment that can be deployed in a lot more robust terrain, we're able to use it for, especially for items like search and rescue. So the things we use the drone for typically from an operational perspective, we assist our forensic identification unit. Those big camera shots that we used to get from on high down over a crime scene, we used to have to call the fire department. One of our identity officers would climb up a ladder, take pictures. Now we can simply fly the drone over. It can also be used for surveillance and observation. Ours has the capability that we can lock onto a vehicle and it will independently follow that vehicle. These photos were taken on the North Highway as the Freedom Convoy was coming into Sault Ste. Marie. We don't currently operate the drone in independent surveillance mode. Those capabilities are certainly out there. From a tactical application, we can assist our tactical team, our ESU unit. We're practicing now with, as the operators become more comfortable and more talented with the use of the drone, we use it to do clear buildings. We also assist K9, as you see on the right hand side, that would be a FLIR system where our officers are in the bush trying to track an individual. K9 was present and the drone was overhead, which to look for with the FLIR system that we have on the unit. We're hoping to get more use out of the building clearing application, whether it be even a burnt building, derelict building, where it's not safe to have our officers go walk through. We can send the drone in first and make sure it's structurally safe, as well as looking for people inside the buildings.
Can you let them know what FLIR is?
So FLIR is the forward-looking infrared system. So at that on the right-hand side, that photo, and we have a video showing it later for a missing person that we located. But that would be in the pitch black in the bush. So that you're seeing basically a heat signature coming off. Now, if there's a bear there or moose, you'd also get the same signature. But it allows you to essentially, it's night vision for us. So this is, I believe, video of a missing individual up on Mackey Road this November. Lots of snow on the ground, cold weather, 74-year-old male, I believe, had gone missing on his own property. The bright red spot in the center is a fire he lit once he saw the lights of the drone overhead. People to the right moving towards him are our officers that we guided into him. So that the operator of the drone was 2 kilometers away from this, and the drone was 300 meters in the air. It just shows the ability to cover a large area very quickly. We've been searching for 3 or 4 hours on foot. The drone was doing grid patterns, and in a separate area, the drone ended up locating the individuals. So this, sorry, this vision you see here is just without the FLIR. And then we put a spotlight on that, put the FLIR in, and then as soon as the FLIR comes on, you can see the officers starting to move through the thick underbrush. We then use the drone to guide the officers and the recovered individual back out to a place of pickup, and obviously a successful search and rescue. Okay. Our traffic unit has a, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I got a question. You said the operator was 2 kilometers away
Yes, sir.
from the drone?
Yes, sir.
What's the furthest he can be?
Well, I'm gonna guess about 2 kilometers as far as.
Oh, that's the max hours, yeah.
And it has a return home, so it won't allow itself to fly out of range of the operator. As soon as it gets to that range, it will return. It's called just as a return to home, so it won't allow itself, you couldn't fly it off in distance and lose it, it won't fly away on you. But there is ultimately a limited amount of range on the control.
And you said that,
We tend to keep, this, he said we were there at 300, we would typically don't go higher than that because we're worried about other aircraft, so. Typically he flies at about 100 meters off the ground, because it was such a large area, he got higher, we knew there weren't gonna be any airplanes flying in that area at that time. So he could cover more ground, because obviously this individual was elderly, we were worried about him possibly being injured, and we wanted to cover as much ground as possible. We've also provided assistance to our traffic unit, which has a mapping program. Essentially, the mapping program allows us to point different, plot different points of evidence on a map. The drone allows you to get up above that scene, and then this mapping program will basically draw a 3-dimensional diagram for you. We also use it as part of our crime scene investigations. Because the drone was given to us through CISO, we have, part of that agreement is that we will assist other agencies, we'll assist the OPP. In this case, we assisted the MNR. Those are giant fish that were poached down at the locks. Individuals have went out on the train bridge, scaled down on a rope, and were essentially snagging fish. We flew the drone out over the water, videotaped them poaching. When they came back from the assistance with the MNR, they were taken into custody charged with poaching and fish, and their vehicles were seized. So unfortunately, we wouldn't have been able to probably catch those individuals in the act, because unsafe to put officers out on the train bridge or rappel down onto a pier. But obviously it provides us with an opportunity to an investigative tool for them, which the MNR has utilized a number of times. Their program is kind of the program we're following. The MNR has a number of drones provincially and have a very large program for that reason. Allows them to see things where they couldn't maybe approach the bush, but they can get up above and obviously in the areas they work, that's very important. Search and rescue, as we spoke about, located a number of missing people. Covers large areas quickly. It can also be used to deliver items. So that individual who's, say, lost in a rough area of the bush, we can actually fly a cell phone to them, drop it to them, and then have direct communication, help them walk themselves out if necessary. We drop life jackets or ropes if some individual were to have fallen through the ice or go into the water. Our drone will carry up to 12 pounds worth of equipment. We also can be used as a spotlight to direct assistance to a location. And our officers have utilized that in at a number of occasions as well. So I was quick, I was asked to be quick, so are there any questions? Happy to answer. The program is still growing. As I said, the pilots are the important thing, getting that training in and finding time to do the practice with the units is what takes the time, takes the effort. So we're make sure we set time aside to get that.
And how many pilots have we got trained now?
2 completely trained and certified. One of those pilots is going to become a trainer and will be certified to do the qualifications for us. 4 more are in different stages of the training. They have to do a ground school and they have to do an exam as well. So the ground school is kind of where we're, takes time because we have to coordinate that with the MNR. Once we have our own trainer, we'll be able to move out a lot further. And it's a good opportunity for younger officers that have an interest in it, because it gives them an opportunity to do something different. And obviously they're getting called out more and more now. So they come in basically a Pelican brief. From the time we arrive on scene, the missing person, they have the drone in the air in 2.5 minutes. Once they get to the scene, so.
any other questions or comments? I have one question with regard to the limitations in the law. Is there anything in the law that says you can't use them for anything?
Yeah, so it's enforcement through the Transportation Act. And maybe the chief has a little more knowledge as being a pilot. But yeah, we have authorities, if an individual is flying a drone, especially into protected airspace or over a certain height, and we would enforce that as well. So to be honest with you, that's not my area of expertise, but yes, there are authorities. And that's why we have to do the certification. They have to be, we couldn't have any officer just fly it. They have to be a certified operator.
Thank you. Thank you. Very informative. Appreciate all the work.
Just on a funding, Brent, was this one funded by CISO?
Yeah, so completely funded the M300. We purchased a small one early on for about $2,000. We're utilizing it, but it just wasn't the workhorse that we needed. It wouldn't go in places. And then like obviously the larger one can go in up to like 20-kilometer-hour winds, where the smaller ones are just not designed for that. So this is purpose built for long. CISO on a project, we were able to get funding.
Are we limited to only one, or is there a potential of getting additional?
So we're looking into we have 3 right now, 2 small ones, basically trainers. They're looking into getting one that will be used for interior, which will be more of assistance to our tactical team. So the issue with that is very precise flying. So they're waiting for the proficiency level to come up in the operating before we start bouncing it off the walls inside the building. Obviously, it's a very expensive piece of equipment. So the future is that we've used it already to assist our bomb unit as well. Flew it into a truck where we believe had a bomb in it. Was able to look into the windows before the officers ever approach. Obviously, big officer safety advantage to be able to view all that stuff before they make an approach up.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. I don't see the program going away. I think this technology is here to stay, and it'll absolutely continue to provide us with opportunities to protect our officers and help the citizens.
Thank you. Our second presentation is from Inspector Freeman on automated speed enforcement.
Thanks, Sean.
Please take.
I'll try to follow this up as well as Dugay so eloquently put his presentation together. The chief has tasked me with looking into automated speed enforcement, otherwise known as photo radar. I'm sure you guys, everyone here can appreciate the amount of complaints that come to us of speeders throughout the city, high problem areas. And as we all know, we can't have a traffic car in certain areas 24 hours a day in order to help in terms of enforcement for speeders all over the city. So this is something that has recently been adopted throughout the province, specifically in 2019. So what happened was the Ontario authorized the use of ASCs, which I'll refer to them as from now on, with ongoing issues with speeding in school zones and community safety zones. So part of the legislation that was put forward states that in order to set up one of these photo radar cameras or ASCs, otherwise known as, the council itself has to designate a specific area as a school or community safety zone. Once that is established, then we have the right, or the city has the right to set up these cameras. Obviously allows for evidence-based deployment. So again, Bill 65,
would it only be for schools and community safety zones? We can't deploy them anywhere else?
Good question, and that is correct. So through council, you have to pass a bylaw to designate certain areas as school zone or a community safety zone in order to implement these cameras.
The only reason I ask the question is because the schools are usually in areas away from a major,
Yes.
For example, Queen Street or Great Northern Road and so on. The schools are always in the rural part a little bit, and so some of the speeding, a lot of the speeding is done on those main, Bay Street,
Main arteries.
main arteries,
Yes.
exactly. So,
Excellent point. So that's your go around here. Your other alternative is designated areas of community safety zone. An example could be Black Road area where ball fields are, for
Exactly.
example,
Yeah.
another highly problematic zone or area of the city. So
Yes.
that's your option as well. Keeping in mind, this is a city-driven program, not through police. I was just tasked with looking up the information on it. So this goes through the city and is implemented through there.
But sir, stay tuned. And some of the statistics you'll see later will show you that this has an overriding effect on the whole city when you do these specific areas. I'll leave that to Bill.
okay. Thank you.
So basically what they concentrate on is that ASCs are about safety. Okay, so everyone has, likely exceeded the speed limit at one time or another, but with clear signage as described here, ASC is a reminder we all need to slow down. It does a couple of things. It increases speed compliance. It alters driver behavior. and also increases public awareness about the critical need to slow down. The signs themselves, it's actually in the legislation that if you decide to replace one of these photo radar applications anywhere, one of these signs, specifically to the left that says states coming soon, needs to be there for 90 days prior to the implementation of the, it's more of an education piece and let everybody know there are different ways to, put it through the media, advise everyone in the city that these photo radars are going up in certain areas, and it gives everybody the opportunity to know that it's coming soon. After the 90-day period, then the sign is to be changed and states that is in use, which is obviously the sign to the right. Again, it's provincially legislated. So how it works. So the vehicle exceeds a posted speed limit. The ASE captures the image. So it's a radar capability, but it also captures the photo. You get the plate and the make of the car. And then this image gets reviewed by a provincial offenses officer. Once that is completed, there's processing within 30 days. An offense notice is issued to the registered owner of the vehicle. Because it is very difficult to ID the driver. So the RO, we call the registered owner, gets the ticket in the mail, no demerit points, just a straight fine. Now these things, yes, Mr.
Why no demerit points? Say if the person is speeding 20, 30 kilometers.
Great question. So because they can't identify the driver necessarily, they know that it's your vehicle that was used, but say you lent the vehicle out to a family member or a friend, they went through the photo radar application, it wouldn't be a detriment to your driver's license if you weren't driving.
So the highway traffic has referred to as rules of the road. Those ones are demerit points. Speeding, careless driving, those type of things. Administrative type charges are not demerit points. So this would be considered more of an administrative type charge because it goes to the registered owner, not necessarily the driver. That would be the rationale behind that.
The whole point of the program is deterrence. Right? So they see the signs, they know it's out there. People are very aware of it. And it produces what's referred to as a halo effect. Everybody knows that they're around. And in some, I'll touch on it a little bit later, some communities, what they do is they move them around every 90 days. And then we announce it, and we say, photo radar will be here, and everybody has an idea of what's happening. They see the sign for 90 days, and the word spreads quickly. Yeah. So, in the analysis, the following municipalities implemented ASEs since the program launched in 2020. Brampton, Durham, Hamilton, just to name a few, London, Mississauga. So Ottawa concluded a year-long pilot project with some interesting discoveries and stats. So what you see there is a 200% increase in compliance with the speed limit, an 11% decrease in 85 percentile speeds, and a 72% decrease in driver speeds at more than 15 kilometers an hour over the limit. So there's pretty significant stats when you think of it from that perspective. And, in my mind, enforcement is not going to get you those types of results.
No.
So what I did was I reached out to Sudbury because I learned that they had proposed an ASE program back in 2021. They've been working on it for a while. I reached out to Joe Roca, and he is what's his title again? He is the acting director of infrastructure and capital planning. So he put together a project. And what's interesting is he originally put it together anticipating having 12 cameras around the city. What they had to do was they had to create signed agreements with Redflex Traffic and the City of Toronto. Redflex is basically the sole source distributor that takes care of the maintenance and all that of all these units. They set them up, they install them, supply them, maintain them. The City of Toronto took over the processing for the City of Sudbury. In order for the City of Sudbury to complete this task, they would have had to hire their own employees, find office space, that type of thing. So it was easier to go through the City of Toronto. What also is interesting is that Redflex software programs work with the City of Toronto's processing abilities. So it was a perfect fit for them. Now, there's obviously costs associated to that, depending on how many offense notices get distributed in a month or over a year. Originally, they had planned to do 20,000 per year. What I found that was interesting was if you had 20,000 offense notices going out per year in a city of like Sault Ste. Marie, say even 10% of those ended up going to court. So now you're looking at an additional 2,000 court dates. So part of this is you have to get your court system on board and be aware of those possible ramifications moving forward. 10,000 or 2,000 court dates is considerable, right, for our court system.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the qualitative implications, again, an increase in community satisfaction of road safety and alleviate speeding concerns fielded by the police. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it's very hard for us to keep cruisers in certain areas for long periods of time, and there are complaints all over the city. Quantitative implications, so the annual operating costs have been calculated based on 2 mobile units. That's the information that I received from Sudbury, which I thought was a lot more efficient. They designate 2 areas, and then every 90 days they relocate. So you have one-time setup costs and annual operating costs. The information that I received from Sudbury was that their operating costs annually would be approximately $688,000, which doesn't seem like a lot of money
For how many units, Bill?
for two
Two.
mobile units. What they found interesting though is that they anticipated about 20,000 offense notices going out. They determined that their revenue generation would be up around 1.1 million.
Because of the offenses,
Yes.
fines.
But is that revenue going in the consolidated revenue fund or to the city?
Going to the city.
Really?
Yes.
See, that's a first.
So
So it self-pays for it.
Yeah, and I think he had originally, this program, he developed it to have like a net zero growth. What he did realize was, again, if they would have them working certain times of the day. If you think about it, if you have them working 24/7, you would overrun your court system. It would be just too much to handle. So in what he did was he designated hours and then just based it on the numbers what he anticipated he would get in a year. Now that can fluctuate from 20,000 to 15 depending.
Yeah.
So those numbers are obviously, fluctuating all the time.
And it's operated by the city.
And it's operated by the
city.
city. It's a city-driven program, yes.
So the purpose of us bringing this to you, and we have, 2 representatives of council here, is that as the chief, and you know as counselors, you're constantly getting calls, speeding cars here, speeding cars there. We say, we'll put a traffic unit on it. Not the right time, not the right place. The complainant still calls you and says, chief or counselor, come on, like this is way too fast. This is a no-brainer, especially when it's revenue neutral or revenue increase to the city. And as Bob mentioned there, the halo effect on number 5, people all around the city start to slow down. I think a few of us here were around during Photo Radar run by the province. And we saw those blue vans and we all slowed down. We weren't sure, but it's that effect in a city. So I just think, as I was asked at city council, chief, can you come up with innovative strategies of how we can keep this community safe? This one and your drones are good examples of how you're using technology to make everyone safer. So.
the only negative is, like you say, is the justice. If there was a process within the justice system where you could execute these fines and the money was coming into the city, then that's the key. Like you say, you can't be sending 2,000 and 3,000 cases down to the courthouse and plugging that all up. But if there was a system.
Marchi? Yeah, just. Not that I'm confused, but why would this be a city project compared to police services? I mean, police services provides the traffic tickets for speeding and, dangerous driving, et cetera, et cetera. So why would the city be responsible for it?
Well, it all starts off with the city designating the certain zones, right? Community safety zones.
Do we?
Zones.
But we have that now, right?
Yeah, but what you would want to do is have a survey done of the whole city, where our high problematic areas are, and then determine that, okay, we need to designate this as a community safety zone as well. throughout the whole province, every one of these cities that I mentioned earlier, it's all city driven.
I think it's
not-
legislated, Marcy.
Yeah.
I'm just asking.
I think
Yeah.
that otherwise the police would take it on. But speaking of partnerships, this is a wonderful partnership where, the city does go out and track speed limits. I've seen those stats. But really, in terms of a better use of money for public safety, it doesn't get better than photo radar. And especially if there is a revenue contingent for the city's coffers, that, it wouldn't negate our traffic enforcement, it wouldn't negate our fatal investigations and all that, but it certainly frees up officers to do more.
Mhm.
So this is a very preliminary, but I wanted you as a board to see it, to know what's out there, and that's my goal to you guys, to show you alternative ways of doing business. And I guess the next steps may be, from my end, that, with your approval, we bring this to city council and let yous have that discussion there. I don't know, Marcia, I'll leave it there.
I don't know that it needs to go to council per se. I think the initial conversation, and I know March and I would both be happy to bring forth a motion, but I think the initial conversation should be with Andy Starzowski, who's, our traffic person, Carl Rumel, yourselves, and then, because it is in operations, letting them know. And I can think of about 4 different areas right now that could be deemed community safety zones, like Elizabeth and Wellington with, I'm thinking Bay Street with all the seniors, and like there's, numerous ones, Gooley Avenue with the Twin Pad and Cora and all of that. So, that's just 3 off the top of my head, but I think my recommendation would be for your folks to get to chat with city folks. And then, certainly I know Marchie and I would, if it needs to go to that point, other than beyond creating the safety zones.
Just for information, I do sit on the speed management task.
I was just about to bring that up.
And
Mr. Perry, well,
with Dan Perry and there's a bunch, but we haven't our first meeting. I think it's coming up in a couple of weeks, but this would be very interesting to provide.
Mhm.
Maybe also a presentation to the committee would be ideal if you're
Yeah.
available.
Yeah. Perfect, Marchie.
Any other questions? Comments? So I think we can leave it that we will make some headway with this, and probably anticipate another report of what the meeting between City Hall and the police has put forward.
Yeah.
In the next month. Sure.
It's awesome.
Chief?
Yeah, absolutely, as long as we keep moving at it and have agenda items, so it's.
As long as you pick up 75% of it and we'll pick it.
Thank you, Mr.
Knock that one in.
You're all-
No, he never does.
Thank you. Both presentations were wonderful.
For the record, Bill, there was more questions on yours than mine.
Thank you again. Appreciate it. Chief, you're on next, the communication and reports.
Thank you very much, and as always, it's hard to follow these 2 fine gentlemen behind me, but I'll take you through this. So if we look at the screen, we're gonna start off with the special account ledger. And from our review this morning, there was nothing addition that was taken out of your account other than adding interest to it.
For the sake of the new people, maybe just a quick description of that account, what it's there for and how it got to be.
Well, that's quite a tall task, Mr. Chair. It was here when I got here.
Yeah.
And I assume monies were put in there on the budget for the board to do their business, and it's maintained that level. You can see there's some payouts there for Easter seals or proceeds of crime or whatnot with interest accrued, and it more or less is managed that way. And certainly the board and the chair have the opportunity to look and see what was spent, what wasn't. I don't have control over it myself. The board chair and vice chair would have the executive control over that. Hopefully, John, that satisfies that.
Sure, thank you.
So moving on into our overtime. So you can see from the graph above, and I take you right to here, you can't see it. So in November, we had 73,000 In overtime, that jumped up to 108 for December of 22. And during that time, we had 2 homicides that we were working on. I can guarantee you, homicides are very expensive, both in the civilian world of processing crime scenes and uniform. It's a very expensive industry, and that's sort of the explanation for that spike. If we move across to see the running total, you'll see that when we compare 2021 at 1.047 to our current 2022 year end of overtime, we're about 100,000 over from the 21 running total to the 22. And again, as you heard at council the other night, we've had 4 homicides, 4 attempt homicides, 36 arsons, 5 of those which were major crime. And those things are very taxing on our human resources. Go to the next slide. You're going to see sort of a different representation of this, is where we went from, when we look at the year end, 324 for 22, and 21 we were 202. So again, we're about 122,000 over, and that has to do with staff shortages, where we simply can't have people come in. We have to call people in on overtime, and that's what accounts for that number. Again, in overtime costs, a different way to look at it, staff shortage overtime costs, where we compare patrol, the uniform officers, as well as our civilian comm center and CERB. It stayed relatively the same between November and December, up about 16,000 in December for patrol. So we'll move on to our court time costing comparisons, and this is an example of the budget that's set between October 1, 22 and September 30th of 23. So that's the cycle it runs, and out of the 3 months we've been involved in it, we've spent 28% on court costs. We still have 72% available, which means we're in good stead for the rest of the year in terms of that budget. So I'm going to bring you now to our November statistics. So the first, for the new board members, the first one I show you is going to be how the month of November in 22 compared to the month of November of 21. So when we look at our total calls for service between those 2 months, we see that we're relatively stable at 0.3%. When we look at homicides, we're stable just compared to those 2 months. When we look at robberies, we see we went from 5 to 7, or up 40%. Assaults are down by 13%, 46 to 40, and 7 to 4 on sexual assaults. When we look at break and enters, we see when we look at the 2 months, they're very comparable. 49 last year, 48 this year. Business break and enters, when we look at the 2 months, went from 9 to 8, which is 11%. We look at theft of motor vehicles, we see we went from 13 down to 3, which is significant at 77%. Attempts were down 1 from 0. We look from theft from motor vehicle, that's where people break into your car and take your change and your GPS. It went down 36%. 36%. Mischief went down 55%. Now, the better comparison from a statistical perspective is to look at how 11 months in 22 look like 11 months to 21. So on this scale, we see, again, our total calls for service are down 3% when we look at 11 months of cumulative data. When we look at robberies, we see we went from 108 this time last year down to 52, which is significant at a 52% decline. Sex assaults went down from 104 to 75, as a 28% decline. As I reported at the last board meeting, our property crimes have went down significantly across the board. We went from total break and enters of 804 this time in 21 to 586. It's down 27%. Businesses were down 12%, residences 25. When we look at theft of motor vehicle, again, went from 181 to 130. or 28% decline. Regular thefts went from 2367 to 2030 or 14%. Mischiefs were down 16% as well. We look at motor vehicle collisions, they actually increased this year, went from 1,300 to 1,636 or 26% increase. Our fatalities were down from 4 to 1, which is good, for 75%. Bail violations are up 23% from 470 to 576. Any comments or questions related to the statistics? Questions or comments?
I guess just one question, through you, Mr. Chair, is, moving into 2023, do you see overtime, decreasing due to the addition of complement?
So a very good question. It takes time for those
Mhm.
officers,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
that's-
there's usually a bit of a year delay. It takes 18 months for us to get someone we hire to be fully functional on the front line. So maybe halfway through next year, we might see those numbers start to come down on overtime.
Okay.
And again, it's also related to type of call for service we have,
Mhm.
right? So if you have some very serious calls that are heavy HR related, heavy human resources related, like the violent offenses, they really do spike us.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thanks for your question.
No problem.
So we'll move on to use of force, and for everyone, we're required by law to collect use of force. In other words, when do we use our baton? When do we use our firearm? When do we use our taser? And so Lisa put this together for me. That was sitting there. Okay, she put this together for me to sort of show you monthly how we tabulate it. So we can see from October to November in total use of force incidents. So by legislation, the officers have to complete a use of force report every time they draw, every time they use those pieces of kit. So we actually went down from 9 to 6 incidents between October and November of last year. In terms of firearms pointed, we were consistent 4 and 4. In firearms drawn, we had 2 in November and went up to 5 in December. Sorry, October to November. Firearms discharge, we went from 1 to 2. CEWs, we were from a 5 to 4, October to November. And on the second column, deployed, we were 1 and 1 on each. So we also put in your package a description of each one of those incidents, so you can have an understanding of what it involved. So we had 12 use of force reports submitted that year. And when I go to the end, the total number of use of force reports from January to November this year past was 128, and we had 187 for the same time year. So that's good news, where we've reduced it by a third. On public complaints, similar issue. We sort of briefly identify the scenario. There's human rights issues involved here, so obviously we don't identify people. But what I do usually is give you a brief outline saying, as a result of these 8 that were filed in November of 22, 2 of them are ongoing, 6 of them, the OIRPD, which is the provincial independent body that investigates, have decided not to proceed. In other words, there wasn't enough evidence to proceed.
And these are all 8 separate complaints.
Yeah. And at the end, I always show you, well, how are we compared from this year to last year? And we're pretty equal, 38 in 21 and 39 in 22, and we have 3 to date this year. We also post a travel log here, and basically, majority of this is mandated either by legislation or by the duties of the chief or the deputy chief. And Lisa sort of spells out all of these things that are budgeted or not budgeted for. And as you heard from me at council, there was a real backlog of training that we had to get in, and that accounts for 2 pages of getting 3 pages, of getting training up to speed, 4 pages, maybe even 5, to where we need to be.
Chief, if I can just speak, I went away, I just want everyone to know that I had gone to a labor conference with regard to the upcoming negotiation, with our crews. So I got some valuable information with regard to what is going on in the province. I have some documentation with different contracts as well, so certainly to get us prepared for what is to come in a while. And it was quite valuable, so I just wanted to give you an update, and I got different paper materials. It was a good way of meeting people from North Bay, Timmins, because we're tied into their contracts as well. North Bay, Timmins, Sudbury, and Thunder Bay. So when we do some comparison work, then I have some contacts and certainly some people that we can ask for information just to keep everything flowing nicely. So I thank everybody for the opportunity and the update. Thank you.
A question?
Yeah.
To the police chief. I mean, the training is excellent. Does that put you in a shortage of manpower? Overtime?
Not, I wouldn't say consistently, Counselor. Some of it we can do here, others they have to go away, like the intoxilizer is in Toronto. We would have to backfill, so some of that, yes, would account for it. I just can't tell you how much. Definitely, if they're not getting the training in the building, they're not on shift, and therefore we would have to put somebody behind them.
Sure,
Bob, go ahead.
Usually those shortages result in an unexpected absence of an employee. So staff sergeants will deploy their people with the expected number that they have at work that day. And during that time, they account for vacation, training, people that are off training and not available to be deployed. But then especially during COVID, people would not report to work if they had a sniffle, as was the instruction.
Yeah.
And that would then cause overtime, but training by itself would not be the reason for it.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Chief. We will go to number 13. Sault College Scholarship Bursary and Awards Program. We have been supporting them for many years now. Rick Webb, who was on the board as well, just previous to the new people coming on board, was always a strong proponent. He worked at Sault College as well, and it's for a good cause. So we always kind of helped out as best we could. So we've already discussed this. We need a mover and a seconder to complete the transaction. Unless there's any questions or comments first.
Also move. It's an area where the police services are benefactors when we're supporting them and sponsoring them, and return that we get in offices, etc. is well worth the investment, and it's police related.
Thank you, Ian. So moved. Do we have a seconder for it?
I'll second.
And Lisa? Resolved that the board has approved an annual contribution to the Scholarship Bursary Award Program at Sault College in the amount of $1,500 to be funded from the board auction account. Number 14, this is a new request. And if you look at the back of your package, and if you can bring that up, there it is, it's on the screen. Here's a little bit of information with regard to why they are asking for it. Cano, Black History Month celebration. So I'll give you a couple minutes just to review it,
And while you're reviewing it, Mr. Chair, Dave Mornix from Acano and myself, Lincoln and Vicky have regular meetings. And I'm a strong supporter of contributing to this community. They're also hosting, as you can see, a annual dinner at the Bush Plain Museum. The service purchased a table, and we have excellent representation from across the organization to attend. I leave that for your information.
Any other questions or comments? Lisa?
Just that it goes to their scholarship fund at both the university and the college, so I think that's really important to support. Definitely, so I support it. I'm happy to move it.
Okay, so move. Any other questions before?
You need to define an amount, I think.
Yes, yeah,
They requested 500.
I think they did request 500.
Yeah.
Are we all okay with 500? Show of hands, please. 500, all in favor? Thank you.
So do we have a seconder?
I'll second it. Is there any new business? Anyone, chief? No, new business?
Well, I flipped too quick. Oh, yes, I was fortunate to be invited to City Hall as His Worship the Mayor for a presentation from Jeff Arbus of the local Jewish synagogue, and it was absolutely eye-opening for both me, and I'm sure I won't speak for the mayor, but he has an in-depth historical overview of the challenges his community and people have faced, and he provides an incredible amount of material with websites demonstrating the concern. And so as a result of that presentation, I indicated at that meeting that I would be having Jeff and his staff come to do a presentation at the police service for my senior managers. It just as a absolutely eye-opening presentation. And I leave it at that. And so I just want to let the board know that we'll be pursuing that.
Is there a date for that?
We haven't set a date. Vicky Monto is currently sort of setting up a date and time, but I'll let the board know at the next meeting.
Any questions about that?
Thanks, sir.
So that's the end of our first meeting. We need a mover to adjourn and a seconder, please. Mover, Marchie. Seconder, Ian. Regular meeting is adjourned and that the board enter into the caucus meeting. And our next meeting is February 23rd, 2023.